very good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's peer presentation. So, this is a Retrofit Information Support and Expertise event fully funded by Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, delivered by Turner and Townsend. This is Varsha Ravichandran. I'm a junior consultant with Turner and Townsend, and I'll be your host for today. It is my absolute pleasure to welcoming our presenters, Colin Timmins, Director of Homes, National Energy Action, Philippe Amarante, Community Retrofit Project Manager, National Energy Action. And today's peer presentation session is going to be on the Community Retrofit Hub project with NEA, National Energy Action. And without further delay, I'm going to hand over it to Philippe to take it over. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Philippe, and I will quickly go into the agenda. So we're going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit of the project that created the idea for the current project that we're here to introduce, the Community Retrofit Hub project. Going to introduce the teams and going to showcase one of the first our clients that we've helped through the hubs. Nice to meet everyone, and I hope this is useful. So I'll let Colin introduce himself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Director of Homes at National Energy Action. So our directorate looks after our work on retrofit, community engagement for retrofit, and also technical research as well. I'll hand back to Philippe.
And I am the Philippe Amarante and the Community Retrofit Project Manager for NEA. I manage the Community Retrofit Hubs and other projects that put measures in people's homes. And previously, I was managing our Fishwick Retrofit rescue project, where we remediated around 45 homes that had failed insulation put in their homes. We had another RISE webinar that we have the link here if you want to see it and have a more depth dive into this project. So Fishwick was a little bit a groundbreaking project for National Energy Action and and had a lot of lessons learned. And from that project was a little bit how this project was born. One of the key things around Fishwick was Fishwick, in a very, very summary storyline, was external wall insulation was installed in about 400 homes in 2013. People were left without any support and able to repair their homes. National Energy got involved, and in 2020 we started to repair and improve some of these homes. And the first step that we had to do was to rebuild the trust of the community in another external agency that is there to fix their homes. And that was a real big challenge. We're talking about addressing a community that was left behind with 10 plus years with failed insulation in their homes. And we ingrained ourselves in the community by working with all the local grassroots organizations, all the local faith groups, and we really, really embedded NEA in the heart of the community. One of the key things that we did was to base both NEA workers and the contractor and the consultants involved in this project in the community center right at the heart of Fishwick. And eventually we managed also to appoint a community liaison officer from within the community that actually also runs helps runs the community center. So it was a really, really ingrained, approach that ingrained us right into the heart of the community. And with these learnings and this model came the idea of the Community Retrofit Hub project. So in Fishwick, we had a people-centered approach. So we wanted to put people at the heart of everything we do to make sure people were treated with the most utmost respect and they feel that they had the decision-making process over the whole process. One thing that we say a lot is that retrofit is something that just not happened only to their homes, it happens to the people in them. And we want to make sure that journey as smooth as possible and people are able to get all these questions answered that we're seeing here in the slides. And that's what NEA that's what we're trying to achieve with this project. And we want to help people from the start of the journey to the end of the journey. And I will let Colin introduce the rest of the project soon. I'm diverging here, but the idea is to have someone that people trust in the heart of their communities. And I'll let now Colin introduce the project. Sorry about this.
Yeah, thanks, Philippe. So just going on to the sort of structure of the project, I think the idea behind this is, whereas in Fishwick we were obviously there to repair failed external wall insulation, so we had a sort of a purpose of being there, and obviously we had the funding to do that work. What we wanted to see is whether we could roll out the concept that had worked very well in terms of engaging with householders and building trust in Fishwick into other areas where there are high levels of fuel poverty. We know there is government funding or government funding schemes available to help those people in fuel poverty get measures installed in their homes. So we wanted to see whether we could replicate what had worked in Fishwick as a process to try and increase the uptake of retrofit measures in an area with high levels of fuel poverty. So the principle behind that was to put in place dedicated teams within the community who would be there to support the householders, and allied to that there'd be a parallel focus on action to help make that journey easier. So that would be around building partnerships, engaging with potential referral bodies, and also hopefully building capacity in those areas and all the things that can actually make retrofit more of a possibility for people. And the sort of key principles that we've taken from Fishwick were, firstly, that there would be a physical hub that they can visit. So we wanted to locate the teams within an existing community centre as far as possible, so somewhere that local people are already aware of, already using, or already familiar with. And locally based people that they can talk to. And I think that's one of the key aspects, is actually having somebody there who's continually there, who's seen in the community, who's acknowledged as somebody who has a commitment to the people there. And I think one of the issues that you do find with retrofit is that the schemes come along, there's a lot of action to try and get people to uptake measures, which means door knocking and phone calls and things like that. Not all of it is legitimate, and obviously people in the community are aware of that. So we wanted to actually have a base there, so people could come, in their own time, at times that suited them, to talk to somebody about retrofit, whether that's a contact they'd had from somebody else, or whether they were just interested in retrofit. They were struggling with problems of being cold in their home, unable to afford their heating, or problems of mold and damp. So that's really the principle behind it. And obviously our ultimate ambition was to try and see how much we could instigate retrofit work within that community by providing this level of support. And there's sort of two aspects to this, as I mentioned. So one side is the people focus, and the other side of it is the area focus. And so the teams that we're putting in place within the hubs, and I probably should say at this stage, so this project is a 2-year project. It's funded by Skipton Building Society, and the attempt is obviously to try and deliver this, but to find out as much as we can, to learn from others, and hopefully to be able to share learnings that others can use as well. So we've defined 8 sort of key strategic aims for the project, and obviously the pilots themselves will then be devising the tactics that are going to work in the local area best to fulfill the strategy. But these are the sort of 8 key aims that we have for the project. 4 of these that we've put together as people focused. So firstly, engaging and building trust with the community. As we've said, it's absolutely essential that we can build a level of trust. We know that takes time. We know it's about consistency, and it's about demonstrating to people that things work, but that will be the sort of first and overriding aim for the project. Secondly, to get householders interested in the benefits of retrofit and ready to act. And I think that's key as well, that we're trying to get away from the idea that you tell people, well, here's a measure, this would benefit you, we'd like to pull it in, and actually to engage with them a bit more about what benefits they can actually achieve by having retrofit measures done in their house, and finding out what measures they're actually interested in. Third one, also key, is to act in the best interests of householders to support them through the full retrofit process. We want our teams to be a trusted friend and somebody that householders can turn to, if they're going through the process and if they have some concerns about it. We can act to mediate potentially between them and the installer if there are any problems. If there's any issues around consumer protection afterwards, we can help with that. And the fourth one here is really allied to that, is ensuring that retrofit is delivered in accordance with good practice. We can't really expect householders to know the detail of the building regulations, what they should be getting, how the grant schemes actually work, because we do find that some of these are extremely complicated, and even for us it's sometimes difficult to understand how they work. So we will be there to help householders and support them through that process. So all of those things will work with the people, and then at the same time we'll be having a focus on the area. So first one here is identifying the needs of the people in their homes. So it's actually understanding the type of buildings in the area, the types of solutions that are going to be most appropriate for them. Ideally to also understand the heat decarbonisation options that are most relevant for that area as well. So we can look at how this area is likely to progress and make sure that we can focus on the right things for those houses. Build partnerships and coordinate action locally. We were very conscious, I think, when we set up the pilot to make sure that we didn't tread on other people's toes, that we weren't replicating things that were already happening. We know there's already a lot of good local projects there. I think one of the key learnings when we were setting this up was that there just isn't enough support available for fuel poor households. So we were certainly, with all the people we talked to, we were welcomed into the area. And we took the stance that we need to build partnerships with others. We need to find out what it is they do, how we can work with that and support it, and not try and do the same thing. So it's very key that we get in there and we talk to people. Third one is to draw in retrofit funding to the area and fill gaps in funding where necessary. Obviously, by creating demand, we would hope that we would attract the retrofit funding to those particular areas. But we also have a budget as part of the project to fill some gaps in funding, which could be that the householder is expected to contribute to a particular scheme, and they might not have the money to do that. It could be, and one of the things we've learnt significantly in Fishwick, it could be that there's other remedial work needed to be done on the homes before measures can be installed. You see a particular problem with areas of high fuel poverty and lots of owner occupiers, just general remedial work over the course of time may not have been done on those homes, so we can get in there and help with that as well. And also we're looking at measures that aren't covered by the funding schemes that we may be able to provide as well. And sometimes those are things where doing a measure to actually show people something visible and tangible in their area that works, because word of mouth is going to be very key to that. It's very key in Fishwick, where people have successful work done. They're very keen to talk to their neighbours and other people in the community about it. So we have to make sure we can try and build that good word of mouth over the course of time. And the last point here is that as part of the project and as part of what National Energy Action do, we have a very active policy team and a very active evaluation team. So we will be looking to identify what is not working from a householder's perspective in terms of scheme delivery, and hopefully propose solutions to government. So we're talking to government actively throughout this project, both to talk about the day-to-day experiences of householders and where there might be barriers in the schemes that are available, but also just more generally about how effective local householder support can be provided in the future, potentially alongside the Warm Homes Plan. And just, I think the final slide for me is structure and timeline for the project. So the first two pilots commenced in October 2024. That's one in Burnley and one in Sheffield. I should say at the outset here, we're not aiming for these pilots to cover whole local authority areas. They are based in particular communities within those areas. But as I've said, it's going to be down to the pilots themselves to try and understand what is the best area of coverage for them, what are the areas of need and where can they be most impactful. Next month, we are expecting that the third pilot will get underway, which is going to be based in Oldham. And then the project will run through till September 2026. And I think the one in the middle here is the key point here, that over the course of the project, we will be carrying out ongoing evaluation and trying to share knowledge as far as we can, both with other projects that are out there that we've spoken to, but also we hope that, there are a lot of things that we can learn from them as well. And we hope to try and, I think, get a better dialogue going between these different organisations, because we have a bit of resource to do that. And obviously we know that there's a lot of little local projects that are, struggling on their own. So if we can try and bring those together and all learn from each other, I think that would be a positive that we can bring out of the project. And also we are looking, as part of that, a potential for additional locations. We have actually been talking to some of the other combined authorities and local authorities about this type of project and whether they might be able to replicate it in their areas as well. So that's the sort of overall picture of the project, and I'll hand over to Philly.
Thanks, Colin. So I'll introduce you our teams that we have so far and speak a little bit how they operate. So we, as Colin mentioned, we have a team in Sheffield and a team in Burnley, and very soon we'll have a team in Oldham. Each team is composed by two elements. One will, what we call the Retrofit Catalyst, who is a person more focused on the partnerships, on developing those local connections, or all the possible, to try to map all organizations working in the area and connect the dots and make sure these partnerships are working and in more of this level. And then we have the other person who is more of the retrofit, the home retrofit consultant, of the expert of the retrofit technologies, and to be more dedicated to the householder liaison and walking people through those technologies and all the process. In Sheffield, we have Gavin and Ashling. In Burnley, we have Tom and Ariane. Very soon in Oldham, we'll have two new people starting next month. And these people we're trying to hire as locally as possible, and people who are ingrained in the community and people who are already aware of the community and the local difficulties and or how this local community operates. And the idea is to bring that, upskill that local knowledge as well into the retrofit gap skill that is needed. And as Colin mentioned before, it is up to the local teams to decide how to better connect to the communities and drive the communities through this process. And we are devising different, hopefully there will be different outputs of this from this project, with different leaflets and comprehensive guides that explain retrofit to people that are tailored to those local communities. So it's just an example here of the two first outputs that we created, and hopefully there will be a suite of this coming through the project and tailored to their community needs. And finally, we just want to showcase one of the first examples that we had of a successful client that was helped through the Sheffield Community Hub. And luckily enough, or funny enough, is a person that works in the Community Hub where the Sheffield team is based. So we do expect this word of mouth to be very, very strong in this community. And this person, we got connected to eco funding that probably he wouldn't have able to, or would not know how to drive this complexity needs to apply for these grants. And through the grant got internal wall insulation and loft insulation that we don't have a photo here. And he made it, and it's good to see that the project's already making difference and impact in some of these people right at the heart of the communities and people that work in community hubs that we are centered on. So one of our first success stories, and a hope of many success stories. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, here's our emails. And if you want, we can connect you directly to our teams as well. We didn't put their emails here, but we can add them to the chat our teams, if they are in the chat, they can put their emails in the chat. And now we should open for questions.